If you're a filmmaker, you probably thought about investing in a Steadicam or a gimbal. Well, I use both, and today I want to break down the key differences between the Steadicam Axis and the DJI RS4 Pro, and I want to show you exactly when and why I use each. Let's get into it. Okay, starting out with the Steadicam Axis, it's primarily mechanical stabilization through the vest, the arm, and through the sled. However, the Axis has the Volt system right here, which uses electronic motors on all three axes, the pan, tilt, and roll. And the whole point of the Volt system is to help maintain level horizon, and it also provides inertial resistance, which essentially makes lighter rigs feel heavier and more stable. Another cool feature about the Axis is that you can turn off the Volt system right here, so you can go in between traditional and assisted mode. And remember that the Volt system is here to enhance your skills, not replace it. You still have to have operator skills. You still have to know how to balance and do boom control and things like that. So overall, the Steadicam Axis is used for heavier rigs and more dynamic narrative movements. All right, moving on to the DJI RS4 Pro. This gimbal is fully electronic using their brushless motors. It has built-in auto horizon, follow modes, and force feedback. The setup and calibration times are extremely fast and easy. It's geared towards lighter rigs, mainly mirrorless cameras, and it's more forgiving for beginner and solo operators. All right, now that you know the key differences between the Steadicam Axis and the DJI RS4 Pro, let's go ahead and jump in and conduct a few tests. And real quick, I want to shout out my fiance. Thank you for helping me out with these tests. I really appreciate you. Let's get into it. All right, so the first test we have is just walking forward and backwards. And honestly, I thought they were both extremely easy to use. As you can see here, what I will say is that I had an easier time framing on the DJI RS4 Pro compared to the Axis. All right, the next test we have here is the stairs, and honestly, I had a difficult time with both of them. I had a little more clearance with the DJI RS4 Pro just because my arms aren't flared out. I do like that for both of them, you can lock in the tilt position, so it makes it easier to frame your subject as you're going up or down the steps. All right, the next test is whip pans, and so as you can see here, you can whip a lot faster on the Steadicam Axis, but it's kind of off balance, and that's just user error. You'd have to practice to get that like perfectly down. And then on the DJI RS4 Pro, it's slower, but it's a lot more accurate and balanced compared to the Axis. All right, and the last test I did was how easy it was for me to move through tight spaces, and hands down DJI wins this because I can keep my arms and elbows in, and it was a lot easier for me to frame my fiance and keep her centered throughout those movements. All right, now that you've seen the test, let's go ahead and look at some of the pros and cons. All right, first, let's look at the setup time. It's gonna take a lot longer to set up the Steadicam Axis. You gotta get your vest together, your arm, the sled. You gotta balance and tune the Volt system correctly. However, for the DJI RS4 Pro, it's super quick, has auto calibration. I'd say you'd be up and running in about 3 minutes. All right, next, let's look at the learning curve for the Steadicam Axis. It's high. Requires a lot of practice and body control. However, for the DJI RS4 Pro, it's low, easy for beginners. Next, let's look at the look and feel. The Steadicam Axis, it's organic, floating looking. And then for the RS4 Pro, it's slightly robotic, but smooth at the same time. Kind of has a digital feel. All right, next, let's look at the stabilization type. For the Axis, it's hybrid. You have mechanical and an electronic motor via the Volt system. For the RS4 Pro, it's fully electronic on the 3-axis gimbal. Next, we got the reliability. So the Axis is mostly mechanical. The Volt does require batteries. However, the DJI RS4 Pro is fully dependent on batteries and motors. And then we got the payload flexibility. The Steadicam Axis can hold up to 20 pounds. It's good for cinema cameras with all their accessories. And then the RS4 Pro is optimized for lighter mirrorless rigs. You have the client perception. Obviously, the Axis looks more professional, high-end. The RS4 Pro is common. It's less impressive on high-end budgets, but that shouldn't matter. As long as you get the shot, then you should be good. And then lastly, let's look at the price. For the Steadicam Axis, you're looking at spending roughly $9,000 for the whole setup. That includes the sled, the vest, and the arm. And then for the DJI RS4 Pro gimbal, the combo kit, you're looking at $1,100. So that's a huge difference. All right, so when do I use each of these systems? For the Steadicam Axis, I'm typically using this for narrative walking and talking shots. If I need to fly a camera that weighs 15 plus pounds, obviously it needs to be under 20. Typically on professional setups, they're probably gonna run a Steadicam compared to the RS4 Pro gimbal. Now for the RS4 Pro gimbal, I'm using this pretty much 90% of the time. I would say 99% of the time I'm using this. So this is good for solo shoots, small crews, fast-paced documentaries, and anytime I'm trying to fly like a lighter camera like my Sony a7S III. And you guys have seen, I even put my FX6 on here. So this is my go-to. And real quick, just a word of advice, don't go and buy the Steadicam Axis and not research if there's a need for it in your city. Don't be like me. I bought this and found out later that there's not really a need for it here in Phoenix. And so I'm kind of just sitting on it and not really using it. I've had 1 gig with it. And so make sure you do your research before you purchase this. All right, so there you have it. That's my side-by-side comparison of the Steadicam Axis and the DJI RS4 Pro. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know down below. And I'd love to hear what you would prefer. Would you rather use one of these gimbals or the Steadicam Axis? But that's gonna be it for this video. God bless. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.